So we're here today to really dive into the subject of leadership effectiveness and even capacity. And when you talk about increasing leadership effectiveness or capacity, however you want to say that, what does that mean to you personally?
Well, when I consider capacity, my mind immediately goes back, Ryan, to the mid 2000s, because in the context of my role as a pastor, I was 29 when I began pastoring. We planted a church in 1999. And at the time, when we planted the church, it was me, Stacy, our daughter, Madison, who was a year and a half old, and one other lady whose house we had the first service in. So we had a grand total, a wonderful congregation of 4 people. And that's pretty manageable. Even for me, that's pretty manageable. And so it was easy to kind of keep up with that. And then as we went along in the early days of our church, we began to grow, and we grew numerically. And I want to be clear, our growth was never this massive, instantaneous type of one Sunday we have a few and the next Sunday it's a massive group of people. It was just a steady growth that God has allowed us to have over 25 years that we've been here in Cabot now. But I remember distinctly in the mid 2000s, we were probably averaging 90 to 100 people that would call our church their home. And that doesn't mean they were all there at the same time, but that was kind of what if you would call the database of people that we had. And I have to be very candid with you, I was stretched. It was stretching me to keep up administratively with 90 to 100 people. And when I say that, what I mean is, special events in their lives, information about them, things that would help me care for them. And when you have 4 people, that's one thing. But when you have more people, and this is just a leadership principle, it becomes less and less able as far as one person to handle all of that. And in a greater sense, it was during that time that my capacity for leading was being tested. So I look back on this time, Ryan, and I think it was like a watershed moment for me. I have to make this decision. What am I going to do? And it wasn't as though I made this intentional draw a line in the sand decision, but I began to make decisions, and I attribute it to influences that I had in my life, leaders that I have followed and have been very influential in my life. Decisions were made to expand capacity. And when I think about capacity, I think of just really a definition is the maximum amount that something can contain or produce. Yeah. And it's interesting because I wasn't doing something wrong, but it was a stressor that growth was bringing. Some people think, well, when leadership grows and when churches grow, in our context, it's just all wonderful and there's no difficulties. Well, actually, that's not true. No. I say this when I teach church growth. Leadership causes issues. There's no way around it. More people, more issues, more potential problems. But also, growth was providing me with a great opportunity. And I began to ask a question: who can I bring alongside me to share these administrative responsibilities? And 2 things came crystal clear to me. Number one, if I do this, I'm going to care more adequately for the current membership of our church. So that's first and foremost. But secondly, and perhaps equally as important, it would increase my capacity to influence those people in our church. And here's the thing, and more people that I haven't met yet. And so it was this twofold decision and series of decisions that really produce continued growth and care for our church. And so I think it's huge. And I think ministers and leaders can find these moments in their life, especially when you look back on it and say, that was an important time because it was a stressor time, but it was an opportunity. And that is when I really began to discern this whole idea of leadership capacity and the absolute necessity of it.